Aurora Innovation they're working with too in regards to their autonomous capabilities. And they did have a Uber Freight autonomous truck there that we could go see and check out. And the driver was there, and it was just older dude. As I explained to him, I got this Sirius XM show, and I'm constantly trying to argue with these drivers that like this technology exists, and he's like, it exists. He runs from Houston to Dallas every single day in it. He explained that it's basically just feels like really convenient cruise control. He goes, it anticipates potholes and things like that very well. But he's been doing it. He runs that lane every single day, and so for all those out there to say like that autonomous will never happen, like this driver loved it, and you know he's looking forward to continue to move on that lane too, moving forward.
Welcome into another episode of Everything is Logistics, a podcast for the thinkers in freight. We are proudly presented by SPI Logistics, and I'm your host, Blythe Brumleve. We've got another episode of Freight Friends for you this month. Grace Sharkey is back to share her perspective on all things freight. So, Grace, how you doing? Traveling a lot?
Yeah, traveling a lot. Had a nice time in Dallas, Texas recently with the Uber Freight team. That was a good time. Got to go to their carrier summit, so that was fun. And heading to Atlanta here shortly for the Freightways event as well.
Heck yeah! Now, that was actually great segue. This is why I like doing a show with other podcasters, because they know how to set up a topic properly. Because first up in our show notes is going to be talking about that Uber Carrier Summit. Just to give you a little bit of a roadmap for the rest of the show, what do we got? We got, typically we cover like the top stories of whatever we're thinking about. This week this month, we're actually going to take a little bit of a different approach to it, where we have a couple top stories, of course, but then we're going to get into some unsung modes of freight. So a little bit of a preview there. And then we're going to talk some good freight marketing, favorite freight businesses, and then also get into the favorite of the show, which we always save for last, and that's source to porch. So where your favorite products come from and how they arrive on your doorstep or in your computer or however you are ordering your products these days, digitally or physically, tangible goods. So anyways, let's get to that first topic, Uber Carrier Summit. So for this thing, I saw the notification for this year, but as we were talking in the pre-show, this event has been going on for a while.
Yes, yeah, it has. I want to say, I don't think it's been going on since the 2017-18 when they first came to play, but it has been going on for some time. It definitely wasn't their first one ever, but it was their largest. So that's the cool thing to see, is that they continue to add more and more carriers to it, and continue to add to bigger facilities as well. Part of it is how many people they can invite to it too. So it was really interesting to see. And it's, for me personally, the reason I was excited to go is because I think there's, I'll be honest, a lot of times if I post a Uber Freight article, they do very well. And I think a lot of people are interested in, will Uber Freight be the next Convoy? I think that is a really silly argument to even discuss at this point in time, especially once they bought TransPlace. I mean, you bought one of the managed services companies that's been around for quite some time now. So it's almost like, that'd be like saying if Netflix bought Disney when Netflix failed. It's gonna take a lot for, I think, that to happen now. And going to this event too, I mean, to be honest with you, the carriers, all the carriers I talk to love working with Uber Freight.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I don't even want to. I hate to say like love, like I don't want to come off as I'm like selling this in a way, but truly like love working with Uber Freight. Love working, especially a lot of them were a part of their managed transportation segment. So a lot of what they acquired through TransPlace. So to hear such positive feedback after an acquisition, I think was really positive as well for someone like myself who is writing about the company. I will say, when it comes to their future, I mean, Listen, I love a kind of like a all-in coach's speech, that you see in like the movies, right? That big huddle. I've never seen Leo Ron ever speak before. I've heard him lightly speak and listening to or like transcripts or anything that we've done here at Freightways, but like to be in the same room, this this guy is incredibly smart, and I really hope that this is kind of what I wanted people to get from the article that I wrote. We're talking about a company that has the exact same tools and resources that Uber itself has. Now, again, Uber this last year finally got to profitability, and I think clearly that's a positive there. But just as he's like going through his deck and explaining what that means and realizing, I mean, like even today, if you opened up like the Uber, just the regular Uber app, like if you're going to take a cab, and you scroll down to the bottom, I mean, they've got data on all types of services, including rental cars, ride shares. You got the scooters, right? The
Mm.
bikes. Get anything delivered from grocery to personal care, baby, specialty foods, and like I'll kind of showcase this, right?
Oh, cool.
I don't know if you can see it, but I do have a 5-star rating, so be jealous. Um, but this kind, like, imagine having the data of all of these services, right, for personal
Yeah.
people,
Huh.
and what you could do with that to create a really great marketplace of freight. And we're talking like down to how facilities unload or load. I mean, think about the traffic data that they have. Uh, whenever I meet people like Leor, I get nervous. So I always have like a question plan just to like be a weirdo, that's something that's not like I guess fully related to our industry. But if you don't know a lot about his history, he actually has been working for Google for quite some time. Back when, I mean, he was the founder of is it Automoto, right? Now we can get into the legal case at a different time, right? That's a totally different situation. But outside of that, he worked when he was starting at Google. His big job was maps, and so I asked him, I was like, let me ask you this. Why is Apple Maps the worst and why is Google Maps so superior? And he just told straight up, he goes, well, you got the short answer. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, resources, money. I mean, that was their job was to at Google to like figure out that infrastructure. And he was telling me about the fact that when they had, which reminded me so much of Freightways, but when they proposed starting to do the Google Maps cars, right, that you see collecting data, driving around in San Francisco, within weeks they automatically wanted to start pushing that nationwide and eventually worldwide, right, to get all of that information. And just to work for a company who's like straight go for it, run after that finish line, I think you consider someone who's leading an organization like Uber Freight with that mentality and with the parent company to do that. I think I just get really excited because when we talk about like digital twins, or I mean even down to think about like what they could do in regards to telling you like when you'll actually arrive as a
Mm.
driver, like all of the traffic data that they have and all the facility data they have, right? If they know that it takes a delivery driver an extra 10 to 15 minutes to wait for the food at a certain location, I'm sure that they have even better, that helps in some way of delivering at that location too, right? And I just, I get really excited to think about what Uber Freight could become with a parent company that is so forward thinking and revolutionizing something like taxi and mobility, right? That was the big part. It's like it's all mobility at the end of the day. How do we get from one place to another? And now we have them looking into, I mean, Uber Freight's their third leg. How do we do that same thing with freight? It's
Mm.
just it's really exciting. And to see our good friend Lars there and Chima there too. Like, I wasn't even expecting to see them there, right? And when people who are running really great organizations that are running with these organizations as well, it's like I'm literally tired of hearing people just put Uber Freight down. I think that's
Mm.
like what I learned walking out of there is like, no, this is an organization who for everyone out there too, I just want to let you know, right around the time that they like were buying Transplace, Uber Freight's comms team and I would go like back and forth on calling them a marketplace. So like we're not a marketplace for managed trans, and I was like, okay, calm down. Like you are a digital freight broker, and they were just like so against that. And over the last couple of years, have been fighting me on like how they feel like they should be respected as a managed transportation company.
Hmm.
And I have changed the way. You probably noticed it right around when they bought Transplace and started bringing together both those companies. Because I'm shoot, if you bought it, I might as well let you use it. But honestly, after leaving this and like seeing that they're already working on getting those two together and going to start using the network that they've built on the managed trans side to bring that same strong network to the spot side, I'm incredibly bullish. So yeah, I was excited for it. It was really great to meet some of the leaders, at least see a lot of the leaders that I've talked to in there. But on top of it, the biggest thing for me was seeing the carriers, the LTL carriers, a number of I mean, we're talking about hundreds of carriers in there that were excited to be a part of it, and Mexico carriers too. Like, yeah, it was a really good time, and I was again super excited that they gave me an opportunity to come
What
talk
is sort
to
of the I guess the landscape look like at the Uber's carrier conference? Is it what kind of fleet size is mainly larger fleets? How many people are at the conference? Like what is the I guess the vibe like there?
all sorts of large to small. There were some that there's like a couple of consultants that I knew that work with more smaller carriers. I wouldn't say like off the top of my head like, small carriers that were there that I met. A lot of small to medium sized businesses, large fleets there. I mean, Jamie Hunt was I think one of the main sponsors of it. So uh, there are of course all sizes, and that's talking with some of them too. It's for them, it's Uber Freight's been a really great resource for them to go to with, hey, I've got these lanes, I want these covered all the time. Like I want to be running them all the time, and finding that freight for them has been really easy to do as that group. If anything, it's like if they a couple of them I talked to knew if they even mentioned like wanting to take on more freight, there's going to be something from Uber for them. So
Hmm.
I mean, especially right in a market like this, to hear that kind of that opportunities out there, it's pretty exciting.
So do they have a load board? Like how are they matching carriers to freight?
So it sounds like the managed side of the business has been very, I don't want to say transactional. That's not the right way to explain it, but very like uh, the tendering system's easy. If you have any issues, they're usually easy to resolve. Manage can be easier because you are going to the same places over and over again. So it's more of you're just making sure that the carrier is staying up to date on it, that bids are going through fine, and all of that. It's interesting because I did hear a little bit of chatter, especially when I put out the article about their announcement, which was the update to Uber Freight Exchange. That some of those managed trans carriers sound like they were a little bit concerned that they would now be losing out on some of that managed freight from the spot side of the business. But the biggest part of that is Uber was trying to explain is that no, if anything, this is going to allow us to now take the opportunities that are on the spot boards, find and if anything, make those into more managed transportation options, right? I'd be able to pair that up. So instead of just giving you like, managed trans loads that are more inbound, we can give you something outbound as well and fill up your whole schedule. And so yeah, that's the exchange was a big part of this event, and it's funny because we were talking about it. I didn't really get a chance to see if like TechCrunch or anyone had wrote about it, but I think someone would probably hear it initially and say, "Oh, okay, so you've updated your spot board." Really, what they've done is they've combined both systems of Transplace and Uber Freight into one whole system, so that you have the ability to see both the spot market and the contract loads
Hmm.
available to you all in one place.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I mean, I played around with it. It's really great. It's even down to like once you've integrated all of your like ELDs into the system. It'll tell you like how far away, exactly how much time that driver has to pick up before close. So you don't even have to like go through and do that math. You can just see all the loads there and say, okay, these are the ones that are going to work for us, and grab those and keep it moving. It'll you can open up facilities to like see uh, what notes are there for it. Soon reviews are going to be able to be left as well, so you can review those
Oh,
locations.
wow. That's gonna be huge
Yeah,
for drivers from
yeah,
reviewing, like, shipper locations, which has been, like, a huge complaint for them for years because of those long wait times.
exactly. And I mean, at the same time too, though, it's like they Uber Freight is doing small package and things like that. So how much of that data do they already actually have? Like how much of that have they already been collecting over time, as well? So I don't know. It's exciting to me, and again, like for me, it's I try to spend a lot of time with the carriers and more of like, okay, cool, we're all at this event, but how does this actually working for you?
Mhm.
And I mean, even there's a lot that carriers I met that I've never even met before, outside of like, of course, Lars Chiba and some others that were there, who had nothing to complain about at all. If anything, they're complaining about other load boards out there that had bullshit on their spots. But other than that, it was all happy faces and everyone excited to see what's coming up next. And I think there's gonna be a lot more work that we see them doing in Mexico. I think we're gonna start seeing some really interesting ways that they're paying carriers as well, and maybe offering whether it's parking or it's different things and more of this. Uh, like driver experience type of solutions. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And I talked to a couple of their engineers and things like that. And it's funny, like I kind of like, hey, let's be honest. How's this been like for you guys? I mean, especially for some of the shippers that you had that have been working in Transplace for so long. What was that like having them transition into a new system? And there were of course change management
Sure.
issues and things like that, but I mean we're a couple of years out of it. They're already pretty much there, and they said by the end of the summer they expect all their shippers to be on this new platform. And I think it's exciting to see that's actually happening, and good outcomes have come from it so far.
Are you in freight sales with a book of business looking for a new home? Or perhaps you're a freight agent in need of a better partnership? These are the kinds of conversations we're exploring in our podcast interview series called The Freight Agent Trenches, sponsored by SPI Logistics. Now, I can tell you all day that SPI is one of the most successful logistics firms in North America who helps their agents with back office operations such as admin, finance, IT, and sales, but I would much rather you hear it directly from SPI's freight agents themselves. And what better way to do that than by listening to the experienced freight agents tell their stories behind the how and the why they joined SPI. Hit the freight agent link in our show notes to listen to these conversations, or if you're ready to make the jump, visit spi3pl.com.
Is it safe to assume that this is maybe one of the first real competitors to like Amazon Freight?
That's I would say so, yes. Honestly, I put Walmart probably closer.
Okay.
If I was like really gonna say asset wise and like what they're moving, I would
So
probably put
Walmart, then
Walmart.
Uber, then Amazon, it would be
I would
kind
probably
of
say Amazon, Walmart, and Uber's up there too. I mean, CH Robinson, if you wanted to look at purely numbers, I think they're number 8 or 9 in the top 10. Uber Freight is. You still have CH Robinson, you still have DHL, and some of these bigger, I think more, because remember, they just started touching Europe. Uber Freight did. So that's just something they're slowly getting into. But I think the last time we got numbers from them, they're at $18 billion in freight under management. Now, freight under management, for everyone out there that wants to know the tricky words that are used in freight, tech, and journalism, freight under management does not mean that they're booking $18 billion. That means that inside their actual, what's been inside their system equals up to $18 billion. I just always watch for that. One in particular, Forager would always use those numbers. Right under management is over I think they'd say like $1 billion, and I'm like, but you're not $1 billion company. So just realize there are differences in that stuff, but to know that they have, I mean, I know that there's competitors out there that have been trying to reach numbers like that, even under management. So I'm excited for them and excited to see how that grows internationally as well. But I think that just focusing on the domestic trades is probably helping them right now.
Yeah, that's a really interesting play for them because I think for a lot of just, I guess, casual watch, I would put myself in that boat. Like I'm a casual watcher where it's you hear of like these other digital freight brokerages go down, and then it's just assumed like, well, anybody that's kind of following somewhat of a similar business model, like they're going to be in trouble. But with Uber, it just feels like they've been ahead of the curve on a lot of this stuff and have moved quicker in anticipation of some of these market shifts. And I wonder if maybe a lot of that data is those early insights to make those shifts into different areas where it's going to be, they're going to be able to build a better moat, I guess, for themselves.
Yeah, I would think so. Yes, I totally agree there. And this is a conspiracy theory, but I was kind of thinking about it because you kind of wonder, okay, what's the long-term goal here? And you would think that if it does become as profitable as it could, that you would maybe see maybe becomes its own company at some point, or maybe we see something cool because I always like to see where people are going, right? I mean,
Yeah.
maybe we see something cool like Flexport acquires or something of that nature. We have Bill, right, that's over at Flexport now trying to build out the convoy mapping and everything for Flexport now. So wouldn't it be cool to kind of see that family reunite again too? But other than that, the team, that's another cool thing too. That team over there, sure, they really like to fix things. And they like to try to figure out how to improve these systems as well. So power to them. Excited to continue to see that grow too.
Yeah, that's super cool. That sounds like because it's just one of those. There's so many damn events that go on,
Yeah.
and they all feel like they happen around the same time. And so when I saw that this one was happening, I was like, oh, that's interesting because there's so many companies that are pulling back on events that there's a lot of like frozen, budgets out there that they're not sending people out there. But this one looked like it was well attended, and just based on just having this conversation with you, that there was a lot of excitement for the people that were there instead of sort of, I guess, the doom and gloom of what we hear with respect to the rest of the market. So looks like they're making some shifts, and they have been making some shifts, and they have been making investments, and some of those things are starting to pay off where they've set themselves up pretty well for when the market eventually does turn back around. So that is
I do want to add too on that note. Aurora Innovation, they're working with too in regards to their autonomous capabilities. And they did have a Uber Freight autonomous truck there that we could go see and check out. And the driver was there, and it was this older dude. Had to have been like late 50s, early 60s, maybe older. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'm like, so let me ask you, people, as I explained to him, I got this Sirius XM show, and I'm constantly trying to argue with these drivers that like this technology exists. And he's like, it exists. He runs from Houston to Dallas every single day in it. He explained that it's basically just feels like really convenient cruise control. It anticipates potholes and things like that very well. It's really good at maneuvering through traffic, at least the parts that might be a little bit more autonomous. It's clear, I think, as he gets closer to like city limits, he switches over. But he's been doing it. He runs that lane every single day. And so for all those out there to say like that autonomous will never happen, like this driver loved it. He's looking forward to continue to move on that lane too, moving forward. So I'm hoping to have him on the Sirius XM show because I wanted him to talk to some of the audience just about what the experience has been like, since he clearly has so many miles in a manual truck, I guess you could say, as well. But that was cool to see too. Is like, okay, cool. They're also into this side of the technology aspect as well. And so maybe it's like it'll turn into like one of those things where you're like looking for, a cab, but you can also choose the
A
autonomous
box truck.
one. Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Everybody load up in the back.
Exactly. So, but yeah,
Which
I
would
think
be super clutch for big events when everybody wants
true.
to ride together. No, not that
Yes.
that would ever happen, but the
Yes.
girl
Yeah.
can
Just
dream.
yes. Just give us a straight box truck. That'll work.
Everybody will fit in there, and we can just have the handles that, like when you're riding the subway or something, everybody can just hang on to those for dear.
Yes. Hell yeah.
Sure, there's no insurance regulations around that, right? Yeah, right.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, I figured we just didn't have insertions. Yeah.
Brokering success demands a battle-ready strategy. Tide TMS equips freight brokers with the ultimate battle station for conquering a tough market. With Tide, brokers gain access to a comprehensive platform where rate intelligence and quote history converge on a single screen. It's not just a page, it's a strategic command center designed to help brokers win. Tide equips your team with all of the data they need to negotiate with confidence and allows them to communicate directly with carriers and customers from a simple control base. Revolutionize the way your brokers perform by giving them a competitive advantage with Tide TMS. For more info, go to tai-software.com/battle stations, and we also have a link for you in the show notes to sign up for a demo.
All right. Now let's get into a little bit of the unsung modes in freight. Now, I wanted to bring this up because I love tugboats. I thought, I had this story idea that I wanted to do something on like the cute boats. And I was like, well, majority male audience, they probably don't care about a show that's titled like cute boats. So let's go with unsung modes in freight. And what brought this like to the top of my attention again is obviously that the big cargo ship that obviously ran into the bridge in the key bridge in Baltimore, caused the bridge to collapse. But they were finally able to have a controlled demolition in order to bring down, parts of the bridge that were holding the big cargo ship in place. Number one, I am not a number one fan of Sal Mercogliano. Just throwing that out there again, just in case anybody needed a reminder. But his YouTube channel is I love. Well, not love. When stuff like major events happen around the globe, like Sal is the first one to like jump on and make a story about it. And he just does he is such a lesson in content marketing and how this man went literally from like a firefighter, former merchant mariner, college professor. He still does those jobs as well. The only former job is the former merchant mariner. He's still a college professor, still does like play-by-play for Campbell University, professor at the damn university too. But he's now a super popular YouTuber who has close to 300,000 subscribers, I believe, on
Wow.
YouTube, which is insane. I was on one of my like regular sort of news, channels the other day that I watch regularly, Breaking Points, and all in the comments is you should get this channel on. What's going on with shipping? You should have him on because he'll be able to talk about the pier in Gaza that is that's a hot mess going on over there. The construction of it is a hot mess. Anyways, so that was a little like a sidebar there. But Sal is like the first to put out information, just anything that's going on with like major shipping stories all around the globe. He really has become like in just a short amount of time, like the go-to source for a lot of these global events that are happening. Well, one of those events is obviously the Keystone Bridge. And so a big part of that after the controlled demolition is moving the cargo ship back to port where they can finally get those people, get the merchant mariners off of that damn cargo ship, get whatever cargo is salvageable that's still on that ship. And what plays a huge role in that is tugboats. And so I was like, oh, this is the perfect opportunity to cover tugboats in this show. And I said, well, we also have to cover the other sort of cute boats and unsung heroes or unsung modes in freight. And so the way this is going to kind of work is I'm going to talk about tugboats, and then you're going to talk about barges, and then we're going to kind of marry these two mighty modes of unsung, I guess, freight. I guess I don't know how else to really put this. What was your familiarity with tugboats? Lots of familiarity, or like, oh, you just kind of noticed them, and what is your, I guess, knowledge level of tugboats?
So, interesting you bring that up. I would say from a very low level, I spend a lot of time on Lake Michigan. So we see a lot of barges going across Lake Michigan throughout the day, especially if you're just hanging out by the lake for hours on end. And a lot of times those are being pulled by tugboats in particular. So that's one. I've, of course, seen dredgers with tugboats too. And then why do I feel like there's like a child story about tugboats or something? Maybe I'm wrong, but that's like coming to mind. But that's very little information there. I will say though, recently there was a company that I did get a chance to write about who was working on like tugboat visibility and like being able to capture the network of like tugboats available. Yeah. I'll as you go through this, I'll try to find that really quick and see who that was. But it's when you say unsung, I think 100%. It's one of those. It's like kind of reminds me of like pilot cars, right? It's like people don't really think about the importance of their role in like oversized movements as well. But they have a really, really interesting responsibility too. So that's kind of where my, without doing any research, was limited to.
Like base level. Because they are really like the title of this segment, like unsung heroes, because they really are called, in my research for this, they're called the backbone of the shipping industry, because shipping experts believe that tugboats to be a vital piece into smooth port operations. I could go through like the history of it, but sort of too long, didn't read or watch. It really got started early 1900s. They were steam powered at first, but now they're mostly diesel powered now. But then they're also trying to move into like the EV world. There are some EVs that are in the tugboat space as well. And the thing to keep in mind with tugboats is that they're extremely powerful. They're essentially like just all power. And they're the ones responsible. And the reason why I bring up the Baltimore Key Bridge incident or the accident that happened is because in order to move that cargo ship from that location, you have to use tugboats. And a big piece of why the accident happened in the first place is because of a lack of tugboats within that port control, that port area. So that's the reason why I had this graphic up from Sal that Sal tweeted out, is that the tugboat is like an essential piece for helping to get that cargo ship and steer it in the right direction to get to the port that it needs in order to take care of that business and take care of, just getting the cargo off, getting the crew members off. And I'm going to play this video really quick because it's super cool. I have a whole new appreciation for tugboats. So hopefully you guys can see. And I'll play about 1.5 minutes of this video from Interesting Engineering.
Tugboats maneuver vessels through the tightest spaces, such as a narrow canal or crowded harbor. But don't be fooled by their size. They're powerful enough to move vessels up to 1,000 times bigger than them. Here's how. The first thing to note about tugboats is that they are practically all engine. These diminutive boats sport diesel engines of up to 3,400 horsepower. That gives the average harbor boat an insane weight-to-power ratio, a whopping 9.5 compared to the 1.2 of the cargo ships they pull. These engines can power up to 3 propellers acting in tandem, generating massive amounts of thrust for the small boat. This thrust is the force that generates a tugboat's bollard pull, the theoretical maximum amount of force it can exert on a pulled object. While most tugboats are able to exert 110 tons of bollard pull, recent technological developments have allowed the construction of the Island Victory, which sports a bollard pull of 526 tons. But it isn't just their engines that allow them to do what they do so well. Tugboats also need to have extreme maneuverability, which is achieved through a sophisticated system of rudders and nozzles. Their overall design is also a big contributing factor to how much they can pull. Tugboats feature heavy displacement hulls, which allow them to dig into the water, creating more friction, which means a greater bollard pull.
Yeah, so that is like, sort of like
So
the
cool.
backstory of tugboats, and how they, not, I mean, kind of the backstory, but just the more or less like their power and the jobs that they most likely take over in essentially any port. Like I've heard after this Baltimore Key Bridge accident that there are calls from like John Conrad from G Captain, for example, that thinks that tugboats should be at every single port in the country just to be able to help avoid accidents from happening like that in the future, and just to be able to use them in tandem with making port operations much more efficient. So there was a couple other key facts here. They said that they can operate solo or as a team to help the mega ships move through a port or canal. If you're looking at the screen right now, you can see 2 tugboats in action. And so they work together in order to help tackle some of these bigger cargo ships, which seem to really only get
So
bigger
crazy.
like many cities, like year after year, they're just getting bigger and bigger. They will also push more than they tow, which is why you see them run right up next to a big cargo ship and push it in the direction that it needs to go. A lot of the construction around a tugboat is really made of like rubber. So in the video that we just saw, you see a bunch of tires sort of on the side of the boat, and that's by design, is so that it's not just those pieces of rubber, but the actual whole of the ship can a lot of times be made out of rubber as well. They help put out fires at sea. They help icebreakers through tough Arctic routes. And like what you see in the Dolly situation, which is what the Dolly ship is, the one that was crippled underneath the Baltimore Key Bridge. It helps it to get to safe land. And now there are also I mentioned earlier, there are also some extra efforts to electrify tugboats, which kind of has a similar debate compared to trucking, which I thought was interesting, because there's a lot of like tugboat captains that have their own YouTube channel, and it's very similar to drivers that have their own YouTube channel, and they, thousands and thousands of followers, and they sort of talk about, the day in the life of a tugboat captain. There was a really great video that Vice released where they sent like this nerdy little writer. They called him the tugboat guys that are working on that actual boat. We're calling them, like, making fun of him, calling him like Egon from Ghostbusters, in case you want a visual of how this guy looks. And then he shows up to a place where it's like a marina with like super, tough guys that are working probably 15 hours every day doing hard labor. And then, you got a guy like Egon that shows up and, wants to do a story on a day in the life of a tugboat captain. And so it was really interesting to see the dynamics between the two. That the community is really strong among tugboats, like the crew that works on them, and also within trucking as well. But back to the electrification, because in that video that we just watched, the power is the most important part. And so the theory is kind of, where you have some tugboats that when they need the big power, then they're just going to use those tugboats for diesel operations. But then other ones might work in tandem, where it's maybe not just 2, but it's 3 of them, and one of them is electrified. The trouble is that the EV's got to be able to match the diesel power. It's not quite there yet, but there are some opportunities that you could work in maybe smaller ports or work in tandem, like I just said. There was also another company, which I thought was kind of cool, because we mentioned, with the rubber around a tugboat and how they have to attach a line to the cargo ship. And the tugboat itself is a lot of times made out of rubber, but connecting to the cargo ship, that's where like the most danger happens, the most dangerous activities. But there is a company called Cotug that is based out of Europe that is trying to change that, where they use instead of a tugboat going directly up to the big cargo ship in order to catch the line or to get the line from either or, what they're doing is they are taking a drone instead and taking the line from a tugboat and flying it over to the cargo ship. So I'm going to play this video really quick. This video comes from Delft Dynamics, and it's about the CoTug system.
CoTug is a leading towage operator offering its innovative services to ports and terminals on a global scale. In its ambition to achieve safer and more efficient working conditions, CoTug invented a way to ensure safety while connecting the tow line. Conventionally, tugboat captains maneuver close to the assisted vessel to be able to grab the messenger line from the assisted vessel's crew, often even under the bow or in the turbulent propeller.
That's so scary.
A minor flaw in the maneuvering can result in major damage or injuries of the deck crew of both the tugboat and the assisted ship. CoTug is the first tugboat company that uses drone technology with object recognition software to deliver a messenger line to a predetermined location. Thus, instead of picking up the messenger line of the assisted ship, the line will be brought to the ship. This allows to sail beside the assisted ship instead of in front or straight after her.
Yeah.
With this technology, a safer way of connecting towing lines is achieved. Not only to sea vessels, but also when assisting rig moves, platforms and dragging pontoons. This innovation is again a step forward in the continuous pursuit of safer tug operations.
Well, talk about like a no-brainer that you're surprised it wasn't fixed yet.
Right. And
it's so scary. Like the boat's like basically getting sucked into the other boat, and they're like, aim. Well, it's like because if you ever watch it like below deck, right? Like they have to do that when they come in. They have to like throw, and if they're off, like Captain Lee's like not gonna be happy about it because they have to. They're basically screwed. They have to like back up all the way. We can't do that with that big of a boat. Like,
well, it's also a lot of danger that happens with that Vice video that I mentioned. The deckhand, who was also the writer, was getting yelled at like constantly because of the way that he was holding the rope. And the guy was like, if I see you do this again, he's like, I'm going to slap your hand and I'm going to do it every single time because I would rather slap your hand and make that muscle memory than for you to lose your fingers because it can happen just so quickly with a lot of these, just being on a boat in general. Like there's a lot of issues that can happen. But when you're on a boat all day, every day, like you are increasing those chances of some kind of an issue happening. So there's one more thing that I did want to share because I don't know that I've talked about it on here before, but I did start a merch store for Everything is Logistics podcast.
Oh,
yes. I made this cutest little mug that I already ordered for myself. So it's called a Tugboat Respecter. It's a cute little tugboat right on the front of it.
American too.
I was like, hopefully, people would like it as much as I did because I already ordered one for myself. So if you're looking for something like that, I'll put a link to it in the comments just in case you're now a tugboat respecter as well. So that is sort of my tugboat fandom in a nutshell. So Grace, I think now it's time for you to talk about barges.
Well, right before we get into that, because I did find it, I just sent you a YouTube video. If you want to pop that open really quick, there was I knew when did I write about this? February. Okay, cool. So not too long ago. And this was actually, a lot of times people come to me with stories, but like once a week I try to find a story that no one's like written about that I think is really cool. And this one captured me. This was like, again, in February, they raised $3.1 million. And their job is just to bring more visibility and create a marketplace for tugs. And it looks like they just came out with a barge one too. So what a great transition. If you want to play like just probably the first minute of the video should be a good idea of exactly kind of what he's doing too.
Oh, and they're at a plug and play event. So shout out to Plug and Play.
Yeah, shout out to Plug and Play.
A lot of airtime on this show.
Yeah, exactly.
CEO and co-founder of OpenTug, and we're improving the efficiency of freight transportation by improving access to inland and coastal waterways. So if you look at freight as a whole and logistics as a whole,
Hey,
most modes have
Westport.
been making transportation easier.
Coyote.
There's a lot of digitization
Oh,
in trucking, international container freight, rail, and even air cargo as well. But looking at waterways as a whole, domestic waterways, bulk and break bulk transportation, it's still fairly difficult to access. Most of the sales processes are very manual. You got to talk to a lot of people. Depending on what you're doing, you may be coordinating across 3, 4, 5, 6 different parties, each of which you have to communicate individually depending on your use case. And that creates a really high barrier of entry for shippers. And if you know the industry, great, but if not, there's a lot of complication there and it's difficult to access, which constrains the efficiency of the industry as a whole. So we simplified that. We're the first digital marketplace to connect bulk and break bulk shippers with transportation and terminal capacity. Customers simply search for their requirements, their destinations, their cargo, and their timeline. They book that shipment and they track it to their destination. But that's not something that's normally accessible with the technology stack of existing domestic and inland coastal maritime organizations. So we streamline sales for these operators by providing them a modern SaaS platform for their sales and customer management. So this includes automated voyage planning,
SaaS, take my money,
customer portal, instant proposal generation, as well as automated tracking and position
plug and play
reporting.
SaaS. They said we want
experience to
We're
their
in.
customers,
We're
whether
in.
that's coming through us, through our marketplace, or their existing customers and their existing channels as well. So our marketplace launched in Q1 of 2023. We saw over 3 million tons of cargo requested through it through the year. And we have hundreds of service providers that list their services, provide quotes, and interact with our customers. And I think these are all Q3 numbers, so it's grown since then. And then our SaaS tools power some of the largest companies in the industry.
Jacksport, shout out.
McDonough Marine Service,
yeah.
CLG, formerly Float Freight, and many others, Port of Pittsburgh, Port of Jacksonville, as you see here. And we're growing that every single day.
That's super cool.
Yeah, right. Like
I love free for shippers. I just pulled up their website. OpenTug is free for shippers.
Wow, that's awesome.
And so if you click on their website, like it literally just like pulls up. Wow. Hopefully, yeah, you can see it. I kind of want to. We're just gonna do a live demo.
Yeah, let's. On the spot, OpenTug. No, I love this. No, it is interesting too because it's like all this data is available. One of my favorite sites to use when I am on the lakes is this site called boatnerd.com, and it's just all AIS data. So it's not hard to brought to you by Marine Traffic, brought to you by P44, I guess. So it all trickles down somewhere, doesn't it, Jet? But it's I think it's cool. I mean, it's a different type of marketplace that if anything I think is probably even more difficult to find connections for, right? Especially if you're going into he's 100% right. You probably, if you're a ship liner and you're going into a certain type of waterway system, there's probably someone you've always used. And whenever we talk about someone you've always used, that means price-wise, you're probably paying a premium price. And he's right. The barrier of entry would be difficult to get in there if you did want to open up your own tug situation or own a barge line or something like that. So I just think it's interesting. It's again, like this is a huge. People don't talk about this type of mode when you talk about bringing goods into the United States. Wow.
If you're listening, we are currently going through OpenTug's website and just clicking around.
I just love photos of boats. Like that's my favorite too. It's like, yeah, look, do you need a hopper? Which we're talking about barges, perfect transition. That's going to be for all of your grains and all of your hopper bulk related needs.
It's just so cool that you can see all of this visualized. I didn't know that all because from what I understand, and especially, doing like the tug research is like, it really is like who like
it is. Yeah.
It's completely relationship driven. I would be curious to know like how many, like it doesn't sound like there's like a load board for barges.
No.
Like you just got to know somebody in order to get your stuff shipped, especially on the inland waterways. Which, if you're looking at the map, you know, the Mississippi River that flows through Louisiana and then has all of these different waterways that go throughout, you know, the central part of the United States. It's arguably inland waterways are arguably one of the biggest geographic advantages of the United States. Just watched a video on that the other day about
Love that.
how,
I love that quote. Put that on a shirt.
well, France owned like the middle part of America. And when I was looking at this map, at one point, obviously France owned, you know, the middle part of America before the Louisiana Purchase, but it looked like France only owned that part because of the inland waterways from the Mississippi River that dumps out into the Gulf up throughout, you know, the central and sort of, you know, towards the western, like Montana, North Dakota areas. But yeah, they owned all of that land. And then when Britain and France went to war, Napoleon couldn't fight a war in the United States in order to keep the Louisiana Purchase. And so that's why he needed the money to fight the war against Britain. And so that's why they sold the Louisiana Purchase to the United States. And, you know, the rest is kind of history. So it's
not a good
cool.
history at all times, but definitely a history there.
Well, let's get into the barge talk. Let's talk about barges.
Yeah, actually, don't leave this page. Can you go back to that? Because I think that actually will help a little bit. So, especially visualize a little bit more of the good old barges themselves. So, in that first photo, and clearly, if you've probably seen these again in inland waterways. If you're surrounded by Great Lakes like myself, you've seen a number of these. They're a lot of what you usually see pulled around. Clearly, you're not always moving container ships inland, and honestly, I don't think a lot of our inland waterways could take those ships to begin with. So, barges in particular, here's some fun facts for you. So, first thing, they're mostly flat, and they're the opposite of tugboats. They don't have a motor or an engine. They're just kind of there floating, and if anything, they need some type of towboat or tugboat attached to it to get them moving from there. And I think that's why, you know, they're absolutely flat, which helps them navigate a lot of these waterways so they don't get stuck or they don't get hit anything as they're going through. They're used, a lot of what you usually see moving around is the hopper style or the bulk types right there that we talked about earlier. I saw a couple of those this weekend myself. But there are a number of different types of barges, and they can measure is up to largest vessels measure up to about 200 feet long, can hold over 3,000 tons of cargo as well. And the ones that you see in the seaports, the ones that are ocean barges, definitely hold more than that. Majority, though, are inland barges, and again, they're for more of those small bodies of water, cost effective, can move a lot in a little space, and a lot of them are used actually for oversized loads as well. So if you're moving turbines or things of that nature, you'll see a lot there. Basically, if this thing can't fit on a truck or a rail car, then they're probably on a barge. There's also the deck barges, which is usually more like construction equipment, natural rock, stone, large pieces of metal. A lot of times they even move livestock on those too. Yeah, I'm trying to see if I see an inland one on there, but those ones are going to be usually just like the flat. Perfect. There we go. That one in particular is called a deck barge. Yep, just again, flat for equipment. A lot of times too, you'll see deck barges used apparently as like dry land for waterway workage. So it's interesting actually. They're finishing up the new Gordie Howe Bridge here in Detroit. So we'll have two bridges now in Detroit crossing over to Canada. And there's a deck bridge there that they use as kind of like a surface in the middle of the Detroit River to help build that. There's also the hopper barges. We went over those. Those are the ones that move more of like grain and bulk loads. There's shale barges, and so those are used for more of the oil and gas industry. They look kind of like the deck barges, but they're usually just like a little bit taller is kind of the way to explain it. Those are apparently highly regulated though by the U.S. Coast Guard too.
Hmm.
So a lot of times they'll help pull those. There are and then liquid mud barges. And those have pipes and pumps on board to help circulate and dispose of fluid. Typically used more in like inland oil drilling sites. So the ones that you're likely seeing if you're on a lake or you're sitting near a large river or waterway are the inland barges, deck barges, and hopper barges. And if you're at more of like a construction site that's on the water, you're probably seeing a crane barge as well. But yeah, these again, I see these all the time. And I usually, it's funny, if you want to bring up the site really quick, like I said, I use a site here for Michigan boats called boatnerd.com. I should bring it to Craig, see if we can like put it underneath the fire crown.
Wow.
But it's a guy who basically just tracks yes, love this site. He basically tracks boats and like we'll talk about certain like boat history and barge news.
Oh, I
and,
love this.
Yeah, right? It's so fun. Like I just love that there's a person out there that's dedicated themselves to this.
What a
kind of
great
stuff.
domain name too.
Yeah, oh yeah. And then if you look, I think is there see on the right side it says AIS quick links. So this is what I use if so my mom and I will spend a lot of time on the beach during the summer, and it will if we see like a boat, we always want to know like what it is, where it's going, stuff like that. So if you click did you already click the AIS? Is it just
Yes.
taking a while? Yeah, I'll take a second.
Oh wait, it shared an sorry, it
Bingo,
it opened a new tab.
And so
wow.
yeah, there's a lot of them, right? Zoom in, go over to if we zoom in a little bit more, go to the top left. Go okay, so that's why I live there. Go scroll it to the left, closer to Lake Michigan. That's funny. Nope, that's Huron.
That's
other side of the hand. There you go.
Okay. Woo. It's nothing like live navigating.
Right? So like this is usually the boats that I'm looking at too. And if you like click them, they'll usually show like see the one that says like Great Republic or something. Right there where your
right there, okay.
Yeah. Click the actual boat. It's like a red icon. Yeah, see, so it'll pull up exactly what it looks like.
A little photo and
yeah.
So if you're just listening, we are on ais.boatnerd.com, and this is all live information, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Sometimes it's like off by like an hour or so, but yeah, usually like if we see a boat in front of us, so quickly we'll get on there and it'll show us, and then we click it and see what's up with it.
That's awesome.
It usually tell you in the bottom too, like where it's going or where it came from. That's always cool.
So cool. That there's just like hobbyists out here that is just pulling together this kind of information.
I know, right?
In order to look at this.
And then this will actually capture like any type of boat too. So a lot of times during the summertime, we'll have like big yachts coming through the lakes, and it'll tell you like what its name is and all that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's so I briefly did, and I say briefly, but I need to do a more in-depth episode on like Great Lakes shipping. I had a Rust Belt kid on from Gator Bar, and so he does like he's a shipper, so he does a lot of like Great Lakes shipping, and he was talking about some of the boats that come in, and different shipping scenarios and things like that. But this is just on another level of all of the, I guess, just available shipping options. That it's not just the inland waterways, but it's Great Lakes shipping as well. I would maybe argue that are these. So we have obviously like port operations, but then we have Great Lakes shipping, and then we have the the inland waterways. I think that's probably like the big three of the United States.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, like, especially you zoomed out here, like, look at all that stuff is moving right now, right?
Yeah.
So it's like when I say like I'm used to seeing barges, like I'd say probably 80% of what you're seeing right now. I'm pretty sure the red ones are barges, blue ones are tow or tugboats. And then I think there's like another color. Blue, I think also sometimes is like yachts and stuff like that. So
That's awesome. So,
yeah.
and if you're just listening, again, we're looking at a screen of like almost like Google Maps, but it's all of the Great Lakes in sort of one screenshot, and then I mean, dozens and dozens of barges, of ships, of probably tugboats too that are in there, of just operating. This is all just going on around you, like right now, which I think a lot of people don't fully appreciate how much stuff gets just moved all the time and how efficient this kind of shipping is, because I had pulled up one note that I did want to share. It actually came from Rachel Premack, formerly FreightWaves. I believe now she's working for a hedge fund, but really, really talented writer. And she said, just with 1 gallon of fuel, the resourceful barge can chug along for 616 tonnage miles compared to 478 tonnage miles for rail and 150 miles for trucks. So 1 gallon of fuel will get you like 4 times as much as a truck, which is insane. That's crazy. So we're unsung heroes for sure in the world of shipping.
You know you should we could do an episode on one day too. Is that up in the Upper Peninsula? If you see, there's a ton of boats by it. It's it's kind of like in the center right now of the screen, right on the border of Canada. And if you scroll inwards, and Michiganders already know this, but a lot of out-of-staters don't know. Right? Like kind of exactly like where your cursor was. Yep. So keep going. See where all those boats are right here in the middle of the screen. To the right where like Canada meets perfect. Yeah, keep scrolling right there. So that is the Soo locks. So like we have locks in Michigan, just like the Panama Canal, and basically the boats will come in through there. The water will raise up, then they can go and they travel through it, and then the same thing once they get to the other end, it goes down, and they keep traveling through the Lake Superior too. So I visited there. It's really cool.
So it almost looks like they're suffering from port congestion as well, which is somewhat recent news that a lot of ports around the globe are suffering from port congestion, especially everything that's going on in the Suez Canal and Panama Canal, and so all these ships are being diverted. So it looks like they got some congestion going on too, which is kind of crazy.
Well, and if I remember correctly, there's only one in and one out. It's only where I think Panama's got like 2 lanes, right? Or somewhere between 2 and 4 lanes. This I'm pretty sure is just 1 lane each. So it's like one boat at a time. I'm pretty sure that is coming through, but maybe we should do an episode on that.
We should do Great Lakes shipping in canals, and then I also think something on icebreakers. So hopefully, if you're listening, be on the lookout for those episodes in the future, and to the haters that steal our content ideas and try to do them first, we'll know.
Well, on that note, if you want to go into this too, we can talk about lesser transportation. And one of my favorite boats is actually built to break ice too. What we're going to do now is I literally want to tell everyone this is my favorite boat of all time.
I think I just brought it up. The SS Badger?
Yes, SS Badger. Okay. Yes. The SS Badger, my absolute favorite boat of all time. It has an identical twin called the SS Spartan that hangs out in Ludington. This is where I spend. That's probably me waving from that from that lighthouse there. Yeah. So I spend at least probably 2 to 3 weeks every summer out on the holidays in a city called Ludington, Michigan, and it's connected to one of our still used US 10 waterway highways, and it runs the SS Badger. So this starting Memorial Day until I want to say it's actually extended sometime in November. The Badger will run back and forth from Michigan to Wisconsin, And a lot of people use it. So let's start back in its history. It originated in 1952 as a rail car ferry. So it actually was, they put rail cars off of the trains into the boat to get it over there a little bit faster. And over time, it actually became more of a commercial and car ferry. So instead of having to drive through Chicago to get to Wisconsin, you can jump on this thing for 4 hours and get over to the other side very, very quickly. And it's actually now one of the there's 14 vessels that were running back and forth back in the day, but now this is the only one left. Like I said, it does have a twin. It's the Spartan. If we had Boat Nerd open, you'd see the Spartan sitting there. It again looks exactly the same. The Spartan only sits there though as a parts server for the the SS Badger. So basically, seeing that it's its twin, if a part breaks down in the Badger, they just go take it off of the Spartan and they put it on this thing. And so it's kind of cool. The Spartan's always sitting in Ludington all day long. It never moves. It actually is now a National Historic Landmark as of 2016. It's the only National Historic Landmark that does physically move, and it is a state landmark for 2 states, not only Michigan but for Wisconsin as well, and it goes into Manitowoc, Wisconsin. I've been on it. So here's the thing: I've been on it for a tour, but I've never actually taken a trip on it. So that's something I want to do at some point. My parents have done, they do a really cool 4th of July dinner where the 4th of July, after it comes back, so it leaves at 9 a.m. in Michigan, comes back to Michigan by 7 p.m. From Wisconsin. And so afterwards, it'll take the boat, will go out into the ocean or into the lake a little bit, and then you can watch the fireworks from the boat, which is kind of cool. It kind of looks like the Titanic. Yeah, it's pretty sick. And it's cool because you don't honks every time it comes into shore. So it's like,
well, what happens during this might be a dumb question, but
no.
Like during winter time, like can these ships still operate? Like are there like levels of ice over it? Or layers of ice?
They used to operate during the wintertime because they are built to break ice. That's kind of an interesting thing about them is they're redesigned, I think, in the like early 60s or something to break ice, but I just don't think they run it anymore because I don't think it's just needed. Like there's not enough volume of users. It's easy for them to fill it out, I think, during the summertime, but a little bit harder during the wintertime for them. So I think they do shut down for that reason. This is when I say it's my favorite boat, I know all of you out there who are like, Grace, you're a Sierra Club member, you still give money Clean Water Action. This is still a coal burning boat. It's one of the only ones still left on Lake Michigan, I think, if not the only one.
Oh wow.
A couple of years ago it did get a new I don't want to say engine because I don't think it was exactly the engine, but it did basically, it used to burn coal and then dump the coal into the water. Yikes. Yeah. Not great. Right. Now it doesn't do that. It still burns. It still burns a little bit of coal. It's not fully coal operated, but still does burn coal. And instead now they dump the ash. They offload the ash at the end and actually goes into making cement. So
that's super smart.
Yeah, they have found a way, but a lot of people were against I have some friends from my college years who were very no. I spent a lot of time fighting coal ash. I'll just say that. I did. I fought a lot of coal ash in my college years, so a lot of people were very mad at me for loving this boat so much. But it's so big and so beautiful. It looks like the Titanic, and it's awesome because it moves a number of trucks a day. Most commercial trucks that are hauling in it are actually hauling turbines, but they are. So I think in that first YouTube clip I sent over, that's them loading up, I believe, trucks for it to go into there. And a lot of it, because in Traverse City we have a big wind turbine producer. Instead of paying the oversized fees to go like through Chicago and Illinois. Instead, you just like put it on this boat and you have to worry about any of it. And it gets there in 4 hours. I mean, can you imagine driving oversized load turbines through like 4 states? Whoosh. Yeah, Chicago traffic, yeesh.
Yeah,
Not
take the
doing it.
barge and a nice little waterways trip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then get a nice view. The driver gets
Yeah,
to,
it feels nice.
yeah, it saves some hours, right? Because you turn the truck off, you have to worry about it. It's true. Did you find that clip?
I wonder, does that count towards your driving time if you're a truck driver? You're sitting on the barge?
I'm gonna without the education say no, because you turn your truck off.
Yeah, true.
I mean, there's some movie theaters in there. There's cafeterias. There's, I'm pretty sure there's like beds that you can sleep in if you want to. So it's like, it's a good time. You're not just sitting there waiting 4 hours. There's actually things to do. Apparently, there's like a big bingo situation. You know me, I love bingo. So I just need to get on this boat. And one of my best friends from college actually lives on the other side of it too. So we always joke like, I just sent the boat to go pick you up. But yeah, if you want to show, there is if you see it where I put in my notes, moves thousands of commercial loads a year. That should be, I just highlighted it for you. That should be
okay.
And then they also move something cool. But we'll show this one first. I will say too, they also in recent years got a new social media like person. So they're like on TikTok now. Yeah, exactly. They're on YouTube. And I'm like very proud of them.
So look, now you're gonna have to get a TikTok so you can see all of these things before they make it over to Instagram.
See if TikTok survives. Let's see. The day I make a TikTok is the day they take TikTok down. Like,
they better not. God, I hope they don't. It's easily the best social media app, as we're about to play a YouTube Shorts that is watermarked from TikTok. Yeah. It's this video, if you're just listening, it's loading and unloading large tractor equipment using a semi, and it's going on to the SS Badger. So that I think that's what Grace was talking about when referring to some of these large items that can be shipped using a boat like this. So definitely like another unsung hero, which is
there's another short underneath that, and this is what they're like famously known for moving these.
Oh, wait, one more.
Yeah, right underneath.
Not that one.
No, on my notes. If you see it.
Let's see. Okay, so now
they're famously known for moving Clydesdales. So yeah. They do this, I think, every single year, and they've been known for a while. It's just a faster trip for them. If you don't know what Clydesdales
easier, probably on the horses too.
Oh yeah.
The world-renowned Budweiser Clydesdales were in Ludington to take part of the sesquicentennial celebrations. After a week of appearances and events, the Clydesdales departed Michigan on their way to South Dakota via the Badger, the second time they have ever sailed with us. They are one of 3 teams consisting of 10 horses that travel the country. For a majority of the year, they attend special events all over the country with their operations team.
I think they can fit 5 trucks in there.
Their appearances this week were sponsored by Ludington Beverage. It's an honor to safely carry America.
Jesus.
I love that.
That was such a good, if you're wondering what that sound was, that is YouTube Shorts deciding to automatically play the next video in the feed as soon as we watch some cute little horses
exactly
get transported onto a boat.
I love Shorts. But yeah, so that's my favorite boat. It's my mom and I, we always love to go sit and watch the sunset, watch this boat come in, and it's loud. It's just, I love boats because, especially on like big bodies of water, they're just like, they're there and then they're not there, they just like come out of nowhere, and they're just, you always see this thing from very far away. It's like a little dot, and then it's just like slowly gets massive, and it's just like the coolest boat, and the know the history of it and how long it's been here, and also just how important it is. I mean, it is very, very important. There was a year that it was actually shut down because, if I remember correctly, it hit a rock or something like out in the bay somewhere, and so there was a year that it didn't run at all, and they were like going through new ownership or something. And just think of everyone that moved oversized loads that year. I mean, if you look at Michigan, you don't want to take an oversized load north. Oh, hell no. You don't want to do that. That would be miserable trying to go through the Porcupine Mountains that way. No, I would never do that. And then you definitely don't want to.
The Porcupine Mountains? Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah.
Never heard of them.
They're so like you got they're like over here. And so you definitely don't want to do that. And then you have Chicago, which is like, who would want to take an oversized load through there? So it talk about like an interesting way that we move oversized loads through the United States. Especially, I mean, even like if you're shipping even from somewhere like anywhere on the East Coast, you're likely probably coming in through Michigan and taking that route instead of having to go through multiple cities. If you can get through Michigan and up into there, that's easy way out. So,
wow,
yep.
Michigan kind of a unknown shipping powerhouse as far as that's, especially when you think about all of the states in the United States. Like, who is, you tend to think of like more like port cities, traditional port cities, but Michigan is also a port city as well, correct? Because of all of the waterways and.
Yeah, I think that's why we have we have so many different cultures, especially around Detroit. I mean, the fur trading was huge in this area. I think about the way that we expanded out west. I mean, Michigan was, I think, just so important there's an economic importance to just how their country grew. And really, until you get to the Mississippi River, I mean, there were no other huge bodies of water like that you could take advantage of and moving things as well. So we should do a Michigan episode soon, and I bet you that could get really interesting if we actually put some research into that as well.
Yeah, well, I wrote that down for a future episode idea, because I liked doing like this, that hopefully other folks enjoyed it as well, but like this kind of segment that's a little bit away from like news and more of like, what's some other parts of shipping that are just cool that I don't really understand all that well. And so using this using this show with you as a vehicle or to research, pun intended, for a lot of these things that I want to learn more about. So this was cool. So we'll definitely do that. We'll do canals in the future too, and I really want to do one on icebreakers. So maybe that'll be our sort of show plan here for the next.
That was actually, especially with Lake Superior, I think it really interesting too.
Heck yeah,
that freezes over pretty much every year.
All right, cool. Well, let's shift gears a little bit and get into some good freight marketing. This is a newer segment that I kind of just sprung on you at the last minute. So no worries if you don't have anything planned for it. But I just think that there are, a handful of, I know that there are a handful of companies that are starting to really kick it up a notch when it comes to their marketing. And I keep, full disclosure, I keep like a bookmarked folder for like all in my email and on Twitter/X, on all different social media channels, where if I see somebody doing really good marketing in logistics, that I'm going to save it and use that as ideas to send to my clients to be like, hey, these are some of the different methods of marketing that you can take, you could be thinking about, or you could maybe be deploying, not to straight up copy these people, but to use it as inspiration, that like, you don't have to be doing like the same boring images and a printed mag that's like a truck driving around a mountain that 20 other companies have used that same exact image. And
it's a European truck too.
Oh my god, don't get me started. But there are some companies that are out there that are doing some good things. I got a couple things off to the side here that I just like to keep tabs on, even though I just mentioned that I keep a lot of things in a digital format, but these are actually like physical items too, because in a world of, just getting inundated with like just overload of emails and social media posts and things like that, which is important, of course, but to get something in the mail, I think it just takes it up a notch, where you're getting something from somebody that they took time out to ship it to you. So the first one I wanted to mention is Zell Logistics, who has been on the show before. So they just released their new paper called the Zell Times. And privately, the way that they did this is that they reached out to a bunch of different folks. Grace has got it too. So we got our freight marketing segment down.
That's so funny.
It's called the Zell Times. They basically use this as, showcasing their subject matter experts.
Also, the sound, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, who doesn't?
Like a true paper. You can sit down in the morning, you can have your cup of coffee, and you can read the Zell Times. And it really is. There's so much to this. Like, you could see on the back, like they got.
I didn't even see the cartoons on the back.
There's crossword puzzles. There's, if you have ever, sort of had a ritual of reading. I used to read the paper in the morning, every morning. My parents, I grew up watching them read the paper with their coffee. And back when I used to get like the Sunday paper, when you get all the good coupons and even like cartoons. The best day of the year was Wednesday before Thanksgiving, when you would get the giant newspaper and you'd have all of the Black Friday deals. And that was just like the best, because you could sit down and you could go through all of the different sales and then plot out where you're going to do all your shopping. But this paper from Zell gives me some of that nostalgia feeling back. So shout out to Zell. They've been a guest on the podcast before. Actually, one of our top videos ever is Chris Fields talking about his 15 years over at TQL and everything that he learned from there, good and bad, and how he applies it over at Zell. So this is one of a really cool, marketing initiative that they did. They also, at Manifest, they offered us some time to be able to come over and record an episode of Freight Friends at their booth. And so that was really exciting too, to be able to do that. That was another really creative marketing play, where you're taking your booth space and you're essentially cutting it in half, but you're inviting a bunch of like podcasters and creators to use that booth space. And it's just, think of ways to get people to notice
everyone was
you.
looking at us. Yeah.
So that was really cool.
Mostly because I was screaming nonsense into a room, but.
And it's just a cool vibe. Like you have that atmosphere, and you have a company that's sort of forward thinking when it comes to these kind of things. Another company that I wanted to give a shout out to is over at Load Partner. I think they have the cutest logo with their little cowboy hat. And so they have Load Partner, which is like AI phone calling.
You got one of those?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Garrett. I want to send Garrett a DM right now.
So Garrett, for folks who may not be aware, he is one of the co-founders over at Load Partner. He has been working in freight for most of his life, and sort of information technology, that sort of thing. Started out Load Partner, and it really helps with sort of doing the monotonous task of a freight broker job, check calls and things like that. All of those annoying tasks. They are actually using AI in innovative ways. You hear a lot of companies that are talking about AI. Well, he is knowledgeable, like probably the most knowledgeable person in maybe all of freight. I don't want to. One of them, I'll say one of them, because I haven't talked to all of them, but he definitely knows his stuff when it comes to AI. And these are the kinds of people that I think are the most valuable to our industry, the ones that have the industry experience, but the ones that are also hungry to learn about new ways of solving problems and new ways of doing things. And I also love this approach too. It's very similar to what Reed at Lost Freight did with a lot of his Please Advise hats, where he sends off just a handwritten little sheet of paper. And that's what, Garrett said too. Just the very small efforts. You mail a little package of their logo, 3D printed as well. So he's also a 3D printer, in case, you can't really see the little guy, but he's so cute. Hopefully, you can't really see it on this camera setting. But I love their logo. I think it's fun. I think it's fresh. I think it's cute. And it's still, sort of sends, I guess, rings true of like the initiatives that they are trying to take. So I'll put that episode link in the show notes in case you want to hear more about Load Partner. I need to make a note of that now. But any other good freight marketing that you've seen that you want to shine a light on?
Well, I did just message Garrett on Twitter. How do I get your cute keychains? Because that's the second time I've seen those, and I didn't realize they're once again not on the list, huh?
Well, did
I'll
you have
keep
him on
it
the show?
though.
I think that's
Yeah, I had him on the radio show twice.
Well, Garrett, you better.
But I will
Sorry,
say,
I was trying to defend you, Garrett.
I will say too, I jumped on here and we won't get into it, but there's some Twitter drama going on right now, and it's nice.
All right, you want to cut this early? No, okay. Let's go check it out.
Definitely, I have to call someone afterwards to get this hot tea, but it's a nice little back and forth going. No, it's so Garrett, good. Garrett got the message. No, I love that for you that you got Garrett's toy. Congrats.
Well, I love forward thinkers, and then I
Yes.
love when people take the extra step of sending something in the mail. Like, think of how much fun it is to get nowadays to get like a card from someone, to get a thank you note from someone. And I've also heard like marketing reports that, just sending things in the mail has been such a huge win, like ROI wise, for a lot of companies to be able to not just send gift baskets, but send something that is a little bit more meaningful. And and took a little bit more time, but still also promotes your company. Like, how many companies are out there sending snail mail? So I just wanted to give, a quick shout out to those two businesses, as they are taking a much more, I think, a better approach to their marketing than that a lot of other companies could learn from and maybe deploy, especially, come holiday season, when, don't send like popcorn buckets and things like that. Like, that's it's fine, but don't make it more like a Yeti mug. Like,
So this is actually from the holiday season, and I never ended up posting about it because I was sick for a while. But I ended up using it. So did you happen to get a holiday gift this year from Tenny Group?
I did not.
Okay, so
and I was a guest on Tenny Group. What the hell?
Well, you're gonna love this. So Tenny Group actually this past year, and here's my way now to share my story with them. They sent a really cool holiday box, and inside of it, I'm not kidding you, it was $100 bill.
Now I'm pissed.
Yeah, well, so it has a story.
Thanks.
So they called it their blessing box. And the point of it was they wanted you to give that $100 bills to a charity, an organization, basically pay it forward in any way that you could, share the story, so that people will know. And Tenny Group, my apologies again. I had pneumonia for like all of Christmas into January, so I never ended up posting about it. But I will say it was really cool for me because basically, there's people all over the United States that deal with this. But when I was in college, there was a moment in time where I was real poor. I was working at a startup for only commission. I think I made less than $20,000 that year. And my roommate and I were having just a tough time with our financials. We were just graduating, juggling, school bills and starting new jobs and stuff. She was in nonprofits. We were just both like dirt poor. And also this is why this weekend, the weekend that this was happening, we kind of lived in the hood, and our whole neighborhood had their like tire slash. So like we had to like go and get new tires, and it was like, so we were just like desperately broke. It was the first time that like we couldn't pay our light bills. And so, something that my parents, there's certain bills that you always need to be on never paying. It's just the first time that we ran into this situation. So long story short, I ended up going to Board of Water and Light, getting in line, and was like, maybe I can get an extension, which I actually easily do, but, kind of young at the time, didn't realize. So I'm in line, and I'm explaining to the guy, we just hit hard times. Is there a way that I can pay even like $10 now, and we'll come back and try to get the rest next time? Like, I'm trying to get our stuff shut off. And there was and I remember because she was just decked out in Michigan State gear, and there was an older woman behind me who was like, heard our conversation and like stepped up and said, "Hey, listen, it's the holidays. I want to pay it forward. You're a Spartan. I have my Spartan gear on. Here, what's your bill? I'll pay it for her. And it was like, just like one time in your life, you're just like, oh my God, like people like this exist. Like, so what I ended up doing with my $20, is I ended up, again, it was about Christmas time. So I went to Consumers Energy, which is our local energy provider. And just kind of, I actually broke it up into four. So $25 each. And I sat there, I brought a book with me, and as people started to come in to pay their bills, I was just like, hey, I just want to let you know what this tenant group's doing, and here's $25. Go ahead and put it on your bill while you're going in there. And so it's just like, and it's that quick joy, right? It's kind of like, you've ever been in like a Starbucks, you've ever been in a Starbucks pay it forward situation, where it's like, oh, it brings you like so much energy for the day, just knowing that like humans are still, thinking about others. And so shout out to the tenant group. I thought that was not only an incredible way for me to make sure that, I'm keeping up with what you're doing, but honestly, for a group who is financially focused and looking to, explore this space and it's just said, I think Ryan got one as well, Schreiber, showing that they want to, pass that buck along was just absolutely incredible. And I can tell you there's four families, one in particular who was like, I actually really needed this. That I was very, very thankful for it. So that, I think, awesome.
Yeah, shout out to them. I'll take back my negative sentiment of them not sending me a gift.
No, but they should, right? I think that's just so cool. And when I got
that is really thoughtful.
I remember opening it because I'm like more of like I'm like, when it comes to gifts and stuff, I'm just like a destroyer of things. I was like, I remember first opening it, like, they just like $100 because I think this is I actually accept this. And I like opened the card and I was like, oh my God, this is really, really cool. And they're like, think of fun ways to give back and what you can give it to. I'm trying to remember who Ryan said. He ended up giving his Backhaul Direct Cares is who Ryan ended up giving his $100 to. Which I let's see, Backhaul Direct Cares is impacting the local community in Indianapolis. Interesting. I need to look that up, see what they're doing. But yeah, I think it was a cool way to thank us for the work that we do with the tenant group, but also remind them that, like, hey, especially when it comes to the financial side, like, let's be honest with this industry, you're kind of you see just so much money flowing in particular and M&A action that it's good to know that there's a really good group of people full of incredible women too running that company. So really pumped about that one.
No, that's a really cool one to bring up, because it's one thing just to send like $100 to someone, but it's another thing to ask them to do something that's going to have an impact on them mentally, and then also for other folks as well. Like kind of like a little bit of hope that you're giving people, and especially around a time that, if you're stressing about paying bills around the holidays, that's just an extra stressful time, because you're also probably worried about getting gifts and things like that.
Yep.
And that little bit can go a long way. Like, as someone who used to live out of a weekly rental hotel or like a bed and breakfast, any little bit went so far, and you just never know what people are dealing with or struggling with. And so good on you for also like going there and just like sitting there and just waiting for the right opportunity, instead of, maybe just handing it to the first person that walks through the door and say, my job here is done. But good on you too for doing that.
Well, it's again, like you said, during the holiday season, $25 is like, wow, if I can put this towards my bills and then have $25 to buy gifts for my kids, like that's depending on how you're splurging, that's a good amount of presents that you can give people too. And so, and it's that time of the year where it's cold in Michigan, you don't want to shop or anything like that. And
true, yeah.
So there's nothing worse than getting stuck in that. And I remember what it was like. If I could, I wanted to spread it a little bit more. And I will say though, I did the first couple ones in particular. I think they thought originally I was going to ask for money. The way I was like kind of.
Oh no.
So the first, like, they were like, what? So yeah, I will say I ran into that. I think I was like, no, I don't need money. I'm trying to give you money. So
they're like, oh, great.
Yeah.
No, that's
I won't lie. I probably did look a little homeless. Yeah.
Well, that's I think your story just kind of cements it that this is going to be a regular segment in our shows. Good freight marketing, especially when it's from the heart, and it's from a lot of times. I always think around the holidays of like, gosh, how can I help? Like, what are some ways that I can do it? And it's always something like kind of on the back burner, and then the holidays pass and it's like, well, damn, like I should have done something and I didn't do it. And so getting ahead of it now, I think is a really good idea to start thinking about, what kind of things you can do that will be impactful, not just, from a business perspective, but also from a personal perspective. And if you can blend the two together, like you're double dipping in the best way possible. So shout out to Tenny Group. I'll make sure I got to add them in the show notes too.
As a smooth transition, I do have another marketing / source to what I'm calling systems today.
Oh, okay. Because I will say mine kind of blends, like as far as like businesses and source to porch, mine kind of blends together. So if you want to run, let's go. Let's hear it.
Perfect. Let's do that. So there's I wanted to start off with this. When it comes to marketing, especially in technology, like I feel like our industry needs to do a much better job of like dumbing it down and helping people understand exactly what the hell you're trying to say and what you're fixing. And that, I think, with so many different incredible like graphic designers and people in like the visual space, I just feel like more than ever that can easily be done. And so, with that being said, there was recently a company that was brought to my attention. I stumbled on a video first, and then I started doing research on the company, and they just recently got an investment round, and surprise, our favorite Jet McCandless from Project 44 was a part of the investment round. So I was like, oh, this is just turning into a family situation. And so, long story short, there's a video I want to show. It's a little long, but it is a concept that I think is really going to do something incredible for our industry. But it's really fucking high level shit that, like, if you ask me why this is cool, I wouldn't be able to explain it. But they do an awesome job in this video of explaining why it was impossible to do before and what they're doing now to fix it. So, quickly, this is a company called Hubble Network. And they have become the first company to connect a Bluetooth connection to satellites down to Earth as of, I want to say it was earlier this month. Did I put that in there?
I do. I'm pulling it up.
I couldn't find it on YouTube. I only could find it on their LinkedIn page, which I also love. Like, go slay. We're a LinkedIn family. Love that. But also, go put it on your YouTube page, Hubble. Like, I don't know why it's on there. I'm saying this to actually just during the show setting a chat with them. So hopefully you'll see an article on what they're doing soon. But this video helps explain why this is so difficult to do in the past and what this can mean for the future, I think, of logistics as well. So
do you want to play the whole thing?
Yeah, let's play the whole thing if we can. I might cut it off near the end, but
okay.
A good couple minutes.
These engineers attempted to connect a 3mm Bluetooth chip with a satellite in outer space 550 kilometers away. If they succeed, they prove thousands of industry experts wrong and can radically change the whole world forever.
When you look at the IoT market in general,
simply put, IoT connects things to the internet.
And what the Internet of Things does is automatically gather information.
It really hasn't delivered on its promise. The existing networks are too power hungry, too expensive, and do not have global coverage.
When IoT devices even slightly reduce one of these limitations, we often see a mass adoption of the technology. Many have continued to depend on gateways and still run into the same fundamental limitations without addressing the underlying problem, the network itself.
I'm Alex Haro, co-founder and CEO of Hubble. I've been fortunate enough to have scaled a company called Life360 as the co-founder and CTO, all the way through an IPO listing. There are so many industries that want to be part of the IoT ecosystem, but the existing networks just don't allow it. The true power of the data economy isn't about building a device and deploying it. It's building that platform that allows companies to really solve problems without having to worry about data acquisition, without having to worry about connectivity. How do we provide that cost-efficient, battery-efficient, truly global network? I remember receiving this call from Ben, and he says, yeah, I think we can get Bluetooth chips to communicate directly with satellites. My initial reaction is like, there's no freaking way.
The first time when Ben told me, I was like, there is no way that's possible. And people say, hey, I can't even connect the Bluetooth speaker in my home. And now you're talking about Bluetooth to space.
I thought he was crazy, right? But the more he told me about the technology challenges, but opportunities, it made perfect sense, and now was the moment.
I'm not going to start a company unless there's some big differentiator that we believe we have. My name is Ben Wild. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Hubble Network. Our first innovation was the software that can change the Bluetooth to communicate over, very long range with low power.
The entire Hubble system is designed to work inside of the 2.4 gigahertz band. That is a globally unlicensed band that allows developers to build one device, deploy them anywhere in the world, and truly have that connectivity no matter where they are.
Our second innovation was to build this phased array that was like low enough power to be launched into space and run on a tiny satellite.
It's our patented technology that is doing very complicated digital beamforming over more than 100 antennas.
And the antennas all work together, kind of like a magnifying glass for radio waves.
And it's truly what allows a standard off-the-shelf Bluetooth chip communicate directly with satellite. That means there's literally a 50x reduction in cost that lasts 20 times longer with a Bluetooth chip connected by Hubble. But in order to do that, it requires us to be a space company.
My name is John Kim. I'm a co-founder and chief space officer of Hubble Network. I've been fortunate enough to launch over $1 billion of space hardware throughout my career. I've always been focused on the execution aspect of very ambitious theoretical designs. We just wanted enough data points where we could actually prove the technology.
We took straight off-the-shelf Bluetooth chips, add the Hubble firmware to them.
They put like the GPS tracker inside, the transmitter, a software-defined radio inside to collect some information.
We go out in a Jeep right in the middle of Death Valley, and then we attach them to weather balloons.
Bye, have fun.
It takes about 2 hours for the balloon to get to maximum orbit. About 500 kilometers south, Ben is analyzing the data that the antenna array received. Ben called us and told us that we had successfully received the signal. There was no error, loss, or corruption, and there was enough margin to be able to communicate almost 4,000 kilometers away.
There's 1 billion Bluetooth devices. What does the world look like if we're able to communicate this information back? I love the applications with Hubble. The sky's the limit. Logistics, container and pallet tracking,
agriculture and tracking of cattle,
inventory like cars,
smart collars for pets,
the ability to track loved ones,
GPS watches for kids, fall detectors for elderly parents, construction sites, critical infrastructure monitoring, soil temperature and moisture monitors, how much are glaciers melting. Real world data is vital to understand the problem and try to come up with solutions to fix it.
There's some use cases that we haven't really thought of yet that could come to be because of this network. My goal has always been, what big impact can I make for the end users? But right now, proof of concept is first and foremost. Obviously, there's always issues that go wrong with space.
When a satellite goes up on a rocket, it is basically attached to a somewhat controlled explosion.
I'm trying not to think about that right now because I'm trying to actually get sleep before we launch. This has been a dream of mine since I was 12 years old.
From that founding moment, I've been looking towards this launch. I honestly can't even sleep.
There's a lot of things that have to go right.
5.
This is like a critical milestone for us to hit. There's so many people that don't believe that this is possible.
4.
We've spent a lot of effort making this work, covered all the details that we need to cover.
3, 2.
I think you'd be hard-pressed to find any other company that has been able to accomplish as much with as few dollars as we have.
1. Ignition.
T-plus 30 seconds into flight, Falcon 9 has cleared the tower at Space Launch Complex 4 East.
think that's the end of it. Yeah, first company in history to actually do that.
To connect a Bluetooth chip to a satellite.
So it's like that's truly the real-time data that they're able to pull, and what's happening right now compared to any delayed or a lot of times I think it's more of like signal connections being sent out right in certain frequencies, and so I'm actually this is maybe a preview to some work you'll see from me, like literally as we're in the last like 10 minutes getting some availability from Alex that you see in the video to talk to him about what that means for logistics. But in terms of marketing, right, like super cool. Like screw a deck. Like if I could go do
that video.
Yeah, if I had the money, guys, I would be in too. But I just think it's on top of that to talk about source support. Like how are we getting data to our systems? How can we get data to the systems faster? How can we? It's interesting because this is something like I never realized until I started, especially just going on like Boat Nerd today, right? Like a lot of those ships, like that's satellite data that's being updated right every hour. It's not actually real time. But it's the closest that we can get to real time. And then just imagine what we could actually do if we could have the Bluetooth capabilities to connect to these, right? Like any device, like, and talk about integrations, like I don't think integrations would be such as a problem because we already have this technology, right? Bluetooth technology available here on
widely
Earth,
adopted,
portable. And he's right. Like he says at the beginning, like the real problem that they have, like, and I think this goes back to a lot of the anger maybe that you see from customers when they are told that something's like going to give them real-time visibility and it doesn't truly give them that, is that it's impossible to get real-time visibility because how the network is set up. So I don't know. I saw that video and I was like, that's really cool. And I think we talk
so many
about
applications too.
So many, right? Like
it even kind of plays into my topic next. Like it's definitely one of those things where it's super cool name. Like, how do you have a title called Chief? What is it? Chief Space Officer? Like,
yeah, so cool. That guy.
What a
so
baller ass
cool.
title.
I love. Those are the type of people that's why I love this job. Like I just love meeting these guys who are just like and girls, but like these people obsessed with something that I wish I could wrap my brain around. Like nothing gets
problems, like
huge problems.
Wanting to tackle it, like, and not just wanting to, but going after it. And I mean, we might have just seen like a 6-minute video, but that was obviously like years and years of work and tireless nights and, making sure that all of the T's are, crossed and I's are dotted. Like that is an insane amount of work.
Yeah. It's so crazy. So I don't know, I'm space bullish at the end of it. Like, now we got Bluetooth up there. We should start blasting out music of Russia and stuff.
The Spotify shared playlists are going to be a little crazy.
Torture Ports Department's just blasting over Russia right now thanks to the Hubble Network.
It's creative solutions over
here.
Yeah,
exactly.
More ways than one. No,
exactly.
that's a really cool one. Yeah, I guess this is probably a good time to segue into my source to port, which is also favorite business that's going on in freight. And so I want to talk about telemetry solutions. They make tracking devices for wildlife, and they teamed up with National Geographic for an investigation into illegal ivory trade. And so, like, as you were talking about, Hubble Network, I'm thinking that telemetry solutions, but, you might want to partner up with Hubble Network too, because it seems like it has like a lot of, collaboration that's going to be taking place. Now, this documentary is a handful of years old, but for folks who may not be aware, because I follow telemetry solutions because of the tracking devices. And so what they did, let me back up, because they're trying to track illegal ivory trade. And so for people who may not be aware, ivory comes from the horn of a rhino or elephant tusk. It's used in a lot of like Eastern Asia medicines. I'm going to use air quotes for medicines because it's not necessarily, it's basically like the makeup of like a fingernail, which is what quote unquote ivory comes from. And so it's used in a lot of medicinal purposes, but it also results in a lot of animals unnecessarily dying because of the demand around this. Now, I will say ivory is also used in a lot of like decorative pieces as well. So it's like it has a very strong like cultural significance. But anything that you hear around like medicinal wise, like it's frankly not true. And so it doesn't offer any kind of medicinal benefits, even though a lot of people believe it does. It doesn't. But there's still that supply and demand that these wildlife conservations have to battle, especially when it comes to bigger animals that are endangered or people just, generally love, like elephants, for example. And it's really horrible how these poachers will get after these animals. I mean, especially like elephants, they don't waste time like trying to tranquilize them. Like they just gun them down. And they rip these tusks. They rip the horn off of the rhino. There's even some like conservations in Africa that are just doing like preeminent, I guess like prevention of them getting poached, where they just cut the tusk off. They cut the rhino horn off before poachers will ever, try to get to them. So there was a story on National Geographic called Tracking Ivory. And it really is like, I can't believe this is like a handful of years old, but I'm going to read the intro here. And it says, like much of the world, George Dante knows that the African elephant is under siege. A booming Chinese middle class with an insatiable taste for ivory is crippling poverty in Africa. Weak and corrupt law enforcement and more ways than ever to kill an elephant have created a perfect storm. The result is some 30,000 African elephants are slaughtered every single year, and the pace of killing is not slowing. Most illegal ivory trade goes to China, where a pair of ivory chopsticks can bring in more than $1,000, and carved tusks sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so, just sort of the supply chain of, illegal wildlife trade. It starts off with poaching. Animals are illegally hunted or captured, often in protected areas. Then there's trafficking networks where wildlife products are moved through international networks using hidden compartments, false documentation, and corruption. Then there's also the processing and the packaging. So the products are sometimes processed, such as ivory carvings, or ground up for animal parts for traditional medicine. Then there's the distribution aspect, whereas the processed parts are distributed through local and international markets, including online and physical marketplaces. Then there's the sale to consumers, where buyers include collectors, enthusiasts, and those seeking traditional medicines or luxury items, driving up the illegal trade. The economic impact, of course, is the next aspect to think about, whereas the illegal wildlife trade is a multi-billion-dollar industry impacting local and national economies and global biodiversity. Obviously, there's a conservation impact around there. There's regulation and enforcement, which efforts include international agreements, national laws, enforcement, but challenges persist due to high profitability and organized crime involvement. Then there's technology and innovation side of things, where technologies like DNA analysis, tracking devices, and blockchain are starting to be used to combat illegal trade and improve enforcement. And so this is where telemetry solutions comes into play, because they created a GPS device to go inside of an elephant tusk in order to find out what these networks, where these networks are. And so if this Tracking Ivory documentary from National Geographic, and I'll link to it in the show notes in case you want to check it out. Another company that did not put their video on YouTube. I assume Disney wants you to go to the Disney Plus app to try to find this documentary. I couldn't even find it on Disney Plus myself. But I'm going to bring up an article from Telemetry's website, because they weren't able, what I thought was interesting is that they were able to talk a little bit about it when it first happened, but due to the nature of the story, they weren't able to talk completely about it. And so I'm going to bring up this article that they posted on their website after the fact, where it says, starting in the spring of 2014, Telemetry Solutions worked closely with so 10 years ago, worked closely with National Geographic team. During that time, we designed and manufactured GPS devices for tracking elephant tusks. Next, these artificial tusks were planted in southeastern Central African Republic. Soon after, they went directly into the illegal ivory supply chain. Consequently, the elephant tusks were tracked a total of 592 miles. This exposed the illegal global ivory trade. It says, furthermore, it demonstrated how the illegal ivory trade finances terrorist organizations, and we could see the daily movement of artificial tusks since the tracking was done in real time. And so to sort of break it down, basically in this documentary, what happens is that you have just an entire container that is filled to the brim with elephant tusks. And so what National Geographic did is they went to a taxidermist in New York. They brought him real ones, real elephant tusks. And so he made fake tusks, but they had to be believable. And then they made them in a way that Telemetry Solutions could take their GPS, because they actually specialize in like wildlife trackers, especially for, like tagged animals and things like that, trying to get more information about, more data about how animals are, surviving or thriving or not surviving, so they can put programs in place in order to help address those things. So they put all of this in place. The guy from the National Geographic show, like the tusk looks so real that he gets caught at airport security. So he has to go through like this entire process of proving to governments in Africa that like, look, we're here for like good intentions, because obviously the airport workers, like they don't want you going through with this. Obviously it's illegal, but they also want to protect, their natural resources and their land and the things that they're, that people that are coming to their country to do nefarious things in order to take these animals. And so because there is such a high demand, and because of all of the conflict that goes on in just the entire, sort of continent of Africa, what is happening is that, you have these terrorist organizations. Gosh, I'm blanking on his name. Coney. Do you remember the Coney story? Yeah. That guy he's actually featured in this documentary that National Geographic created, that he has no interest in, some of the, the ivory benefits or anything, or even like conservation, but he is literally sending men into the middle of the jungle or the middle of these huge fields in order to take down these elephants, steal the tusk, and then he uses that to finance his terrorist organization. And so it's this wide web of all of these different things that are impacting because of the illegal global ivory trade. And so the documentary sort of goes through all of this process, and I'm going to pull up this map because this map is just so incredible. Hopefully it loads for me, because it is, a little bit of an older article. It does take a little bit of time for this to load. So hopefully this will pull up. Let's just give that a second there. But it's what he calls it ivory to arms, is the why behind leaders like Joseph Kony, who's in charge of the LRA, the LRA is the Lord's Resistance Army in the DRC. So the Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, I believe is the acronym and how it spells out. But he's in charge of the LRA in order to seek out the ivory, and they trade it for arms to keep their group powerful. So Joseph Rao Kony is a Ugandan militant and a warlord who founded the Lord's Resistance Army. He is designated as a terrorist group by the United Nations peacekeepers. In recent years, the illegal ivory trade has shown both an increase and decreases in different aspects. But although the overall number of detected shipments containing ivory has decreased, the volume of the ivory being seized has increased significantly. It rose like over 124% in the last 2 years. So these are some of like the more updated numbers. And they said, overall, while some progress has been made in reducing demand and increasing the seizures, the illegal ivory trade remains a significant challenge due to its complexity and involvement with organized crime. Okay, that website finally did load. I mean, we're talking about a 10-year-old website here. So I'm gonna bring it up because and I'm sorry if you're just listening, you really need to go to the YouTube channel over Everything is Logistics in order for you to see all of the visuals that that come from this. And it really is like you can watch in real time and you can play around with this map, and I'll link to it in the show notes, but it starts going through all of the different locations. And so if you keep, and like I'm on the screen right now, so keep hitting next. I don't know why it's not actually loading. So, well, that sucks. But we talked through all of this, but basically it's a giant map of Africa. But if you go through each of these maps, it shows all of the different locations. So they have a little tab that you can kind of click, next on a bunch of times. It's not really working for me though. It's not working in this environment. So, oh, well, there it goes. So maybe it just didn't work with StreamYard. So I'll give you all a little bit of, let me try to share this screen again just so I can show, because the visual is actually really cool. And I'm pretty sure it's probably StreamYard that isn't allowing this visual to take place. But you can get down to the ground level of how they use these GPS trackers inside of these tusks in order to see the routes. And for a lot of these routes, they're not going on roads. They are literally they're hiring villagers who don't make any money, giving them some cash and saying, I want you to carry this. And they're carrying it through literally middle of the jungle in order to avoid being tracked. And we would have never known about these different routes that these poachers are taking to supply this illegal ivory trade, if not for these GPS devices that were placed inside of, tusk that were created by a taxidermist in order to, it was these tusks were, they were fooling people at the airport. They were that good. And so being able to, I think, visualize this was really key for me.
No, that is really cool. It reminds me.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. I finally got it to work.
So what does it do again? If it's gray?
So this map, and I love like these types of like journalist stories where you can tell like this guy, he spent years like going after this story. And what I will say though, what was the most frustrating part of watching this documentary is that at the very end, he's like, much more to come. I can't wait to, use this type of methodology and expose more like global illegal trade routes. Nothing after this story, which is super frustrating because I tried looking up the journalist who was in charge of the story. I tried looking him up on Twitter, on social media, tried looking to see if there were any follow-up stories. I could not find anything. And I spent hours so not only did I watch this damn documentary and write out, all of this for this show, but I spent hours trying to find a follow-up on what's going on with this, and I could find nothing. So if y'all know of anything about this, like, please let me know. Telemetry Solutions is still in business. Like, they mostly focus on, with other GPS trackers. I don't know if they're doing anything specific in this regard yet. But this was just a really cool visualization of how, source to porch, unfortunately, of where these elephant tusks are being poached, where these animals are being killed, the routes that they are taking to get to the different ports. If you're looking at the screen right now, you can kind of see that they have a little key off to the side where it talks about export hubs or major markets, major export trafficking hubs, trade routes. This is all on the screen right now. And so it gives insight into all of these different trade routes that we didn't know existed until these GPS devices were put inside of these fake elephant tusks. And so I thought that was just really like such an eye opener. I hope that initiatives like this still exist. Hopefully they do. But right now it's just about raising like awareness. I think that's probably the biggest issue with poaching and illegal ivory trade is just getting the awareness to the people who want to buy it that, hey, this doesn't provide any sort of medicinal benefits to you, even though culturally it's, probably significant, but if it doesn't do anything for you and the animals are being killed in the process, like, what are you really doing this for? And so raising that kind of like general education awareness, I think, is also really important. So yeah, shout out to Telemetry Solutions, shout out to Nat Geo for doing that story. If there's been an update since then, I would really love to see it. But in the meantime, I will link to the documentary in the show notes that I had to find on Vimeo because it wasn't on Nat Geo's YouTube page. Yeah, I had to go to Vimeo.
Yeah, why do people do that? That's so weird.
I think it's like competing streaming networks. That was my assumption, is like, with YouTube getting into like YouTube TV, and they have all these, a lot of people are spending their time on YouTube versus, going to Disney Plus. And so since Disney Plus owns Nat Geo, I'm assuming that that's why that they didn't have this stuff, because they had clips. They had like 2-minute long clips that were on YouTube, but they didn't have the full thing. So if you want to watch the full thing, I'll link to it in the show notes, which seems to come from the producer that was on that particular documentary. In case you don't know how it kind of works, like Nat Geo is almost like a Netflix, where they have employees, of course, but they also have other folks that they will contract with in order to do stories like this. So I thought it was a really cool perspective and, I guess, insight into some of the stuff that you don't really think about when it comes to logistics, which is kind of like, I think, the overall theme of the show so far.
So I just sprayed water all over me. If anyone saw that, it was me.
All the more reason to watch this on YouTube.
No,
this particular episode.
It does remind me, actually. So my mom and I got each other the same gift this year on accident for Christmas, and actually, I think it's right here. Oh, here it is. And you can get it at Barges Noble. You can get it online. I was trying to open up. Let me see really quick. I believe it. I thought it had an app.
Oh, speaking while you're.
Oh, so here's this bracelet. It's like.
Oh yeah.
There. And then with it, once you get it, you can now track your animal.
What are the bracelets called again? Because I almost included that in my show notes. Oh, it's a really cool initiative.
FAHLO. And so it's funny because my mom and I, our polar bears are like near each other, but it'll like track them too. You can check up on it, and
so it's basically you buy a bracelet, and then they give you you go to the website and you link your bracelet to the animal that you are tracking, that you have quote unquote adopted.
Yes.
And then it shows you their path of like the routes that they take. And so they, not just polar bears, but I don't know if the same company does like other animals, but I have seen other animals where it's like you can adopt a shark or a sea turtle, like something cute, like a sea turtle. But then there's also, I don't know if you've seen it.
The sloth?
Not the sloth. But
I saw the sloth and I was like, sloths don't move, so I don't know what you're tracking.
But this poor girl was like, my turtle hasn't moved in 6 days. What does it mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I hate to tell you, the circle of life here.
Yeah. Well, it's cute too. She has 6 cubs with her.
Aw.
I mean, it'll tell you, like, miles that they're moving, average of 0.2 miles an hour, slow. But it's cool. Like, we were like talking about taking a trip up to Hudson Bay.
Oh, you're gonna go find your polar bears.
Try to find your polar bears.
Hopefully, you do it from a very safe distance.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And I'm sure they're like, no, don't come up here. So they're like, all these people want to follow. But no, it's interesting to like watch them, and the same thing there, to be able to like track that all the way down. I know. We've seen that, especially in like lost cargo and things of that nature. But I mean, something like that where it's like, really bad for animals. Even more so, just terrible for the economy too. Like, power to them. That's awesome. I'd like to see. I was just checking out their website. I was trying to see what they're maybe even more so what they're following. But it's, I mean, there's so many different types of trackers that they have too. So I'm sure.
I'm sure there's definitely, and that was
Yeah.
so frustrating about the ending of
Artificial
that documentary. It's like I want to know more. Like I want to support you. Like I'm doing a story
Yeah.
on it. Like I want to be able to provide an update to people, and I could not find anything. And so maybe the program has just evolved into another name that I couldn't, track down. That just get your SEO in order, y'all. Like get on YouTube so you can help us do our job. And then for other folks who may not, or who may be aware of some other initiatives that are going on, and hopefully maybe Hubble, the Hubble Network can help with things like this in the future as well. So really cool initiatives that, it really sort of brings it home with like everything really is logistics. And so bringing all of that information under one roof to make actionable decisions off of it is just really cool. And it happens in a lot of different ways that, may not have anything to do with like, semi trucks or, big cargo ships, or everything to do with both of those two things. But little known or lesser known, I think, logistics stories that we did a good job of covering in this episode. So Grace, as you prepare for F3, this episode will actually drop while F3 is going on. So hopefully we will get a big recap from you on the next episode. And for folks who maybe be listening to this while they're at F3, we should do like something cool. Like they can tell you like a code word or something.
Yeah. If you're watching this during F3, come find me at the JB Hunt 360 party. We all love a JB Hunt 360 party at the Porsche Center, and we can look at cool cars. And
the Porsche Center. That was one of my first FreightWaves events that we went over to. It was also in Atlanta, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. They took a bunch of us over to the Porsche area. And if you can, I swear, if you go here, please get me one of the pens from the Porsche facility. Get me multiple.
Your pens?
No, a writing pen.
Okay, why?
The best pens, if they still have them. Okay. I have searched online who the manufacturer of this pen is because I loved it that much. Have not been able to find it. The pen is empty, but I still, RIP Convoy.
Don't even.
I'm sorry.
I have so much. I have like a whole thing here, just Convoy stuff.
Is this it? Yep, this pen right here, the Porsche pen. If you can see it, it is the best pen.
Put that close to the camera for me.
I can't. It won't do the zoom because it'll just get blurry.
Oh yeah, you're right.
But this
pen, it's black. Okay, black.
They put it because you got to fill out your paperwork before you do any like the test car driving stuff or whatever. But they just have them sitting around, on desks and stuff.
Oh, so it's not even like an expensive pen. It's just
it's not. But it's very good.
Ballpoint? What are we looking at? Ink?
All it says is Porsche on it. There's no other kind of identifier. It says China on the side. Great.
That sounds right.
Yeah, that's the only identifiers on this pen. I completely took it apart.
So many pens. Like, man. I went to a Porsche Center and all I got was a ton of pens.
It's a great pen. So
I trust you.
Steal me a couple if you can. Ask to borrow it.
No, I'll just take them.
Steal it. All right, Grace. I think that about does it for this show. We're at the point where we're rambling.
Yeah. Oh,
now.
By the way, so if you watch this and you see me at the Porsche Center, bring me a pen.
A Porsche pen. Bring her several because she's gonna give me one.
Finishes, they're like, where is all of our writing utensils?
I would love to see you come back on the next episode with like just a stack of Porsche pens.
Just like a whole thing full of them.
So
I'm driving my Chevy Equinox 2016 down the road with just full of Porsche pens.
See, and you hear it's a good click too, a good strong click, which is very
I thought you were
important.
gonna tell me it's like in the gift shop and it's like a special pin.
It's sitting on the counter. It's when you check in, they probably have a cup full of them.
Yeah, exactly.
But if they do, take them all because they're that good. They're that good.
I trust you.
Please, God, let them still have it.
You're gonna need to remind me. I'm gonna set a reminder after this. That's what we'll do.
All right. Well, anything else you're working on that we want to send the people to?
I've got some really good stories. I keep saying it. I've got some really cool stories happening. Even some of the stuff that we touched on today. Some news might be released on some of those areas by the time that this airs. So go check out my writing on freightwaves.com. I think actually just do freightwaves.com/Grace. Nope. News/author/Grace Sharkey. So just Google Freightwaves Grace Sharkey. It'll pop up at the top. And then you'll be able to see all of my recent articles too. And then go check out the Stock Out with me and Mike out in Distal. We've been having some really great episodes as of recently, working on some great guests from Ross, from Liquid Death, to maybe even Telenova. We're really working on that one. That might take it. Yeah. So go and support that, and that's pretty much it for now.
All right, cool. Well, we will look forward to a future of supply chain. I always want to say F3, but future of supply chain recap on the next episode, and hopefully a fistful of Porsche pens. So thank you again, Grace. This is another fun episode, and we'll see y'all all real soon. And that does it.